Hello all my friends, this is Doc Eon, welcoming you to my Monday Miniatures Ramble for Monday the 13th of June 2016. And I'm starting out with a bunch of my Malifaux miniatures, my Outcasts, my Mercenaries that I painted up. Well, not all are Mercenaries actually, only the first two, Bishop and Hans. Now, let's see, just to compare it. This is the original paint job, and so you see it's not my lack of imagination that made me paint him so drab. That's actually the way he was intended. Same thing with Hans. Okay, I went with a slightly grayer brown instead of the red brown of... But I mean, this one is even darker than I painted it. So, yeah. And as I was saying, only Bishop and Hans here are actually mercenaries, so they can be used with other crews, but the remainder are pure outcasts and have to be on their own. But what I did was I decided to go a bit brighter with them. I got sick of painting these drab colors. So here's Rusty Alice. Now, well, she's kind of bright in the original artwork as well. So I went with that basic red scheme for her clothing, but with black hair as it is in some other artwork, not that strange black with a white stripe they had on the studio paint job. It's not a very detailed mini anyway. It's hard to get some interesting contrast out of it. But finally with Johan here, he is again sort of drab gray, but I was inspired by the fact that the lining of his cloak was red, so I did that, but then I did the outside of the cloak as well as his pants in a brighter blue. This is a sort of a blue-grayish color here, but I went with a teal. I thought that it would look more striking. You know, I thought maybe because he's an X minor, he would want something that was a bit more colorful to take him away from his background. And anyway, and finally, the Hodgepodge effigy is pretty bright and followed, well, even somewhat brighter. The blue is somewhat brighter than the faded blue here of the studio artwork. Overall, an okay figure. Now, these 5 are all that I've finished in the past week, and normally I would say 5 figures was a good week's work, but I said I was going to get more time to paint this week, didn't I? Where did that time go? Well, it went towards my other big project, the Verthandi project. I spent a lot of time pushing that towards completion, and I did complete it, as you perhaps saw if you've been following along. So, now I'm gearing up for my next big project, my next big summer project, which will be revealed in the days to come. But first, let's see what the status is of the other stuff that's in the works. Now for the kind of HQ section of the Victoria's crew, the Master Henchman Totem set. This is how far I've gotten so far. I've done some work on the metallics and the hair. The hair color is spilled over on their faces a bit, but that's going to be painted over with skin tones, which is up next. And I'm going to use some new paints. This is another scale color set. You've seen me use their NMM sets for silver and gold, non-metallic metal, if you've seen me the Verthandi series of videos. This is a bunch of paints for painting all kinds of skin. All the way from pale skin, all the way to African shadow. For these girls, we're probably going to do pink flesh and up. Basically. Yeah. That's the plan. Now for the next models in line, I'm kind of in the assembly phase. Well, this particular one is completely assembled. It's just awaiting priming. Just want the glues to set properly. This is the... I've shown you this on the sprue before. It's the War Wabbit, which is A huge rabbit ridden by a couple of gremlins. And there's some eggs on the ground too. This is an alternate sort of comedic sculpt for the war pig. I mean, as if the war pig was not funny enough in itself. Now this is a sort of Easter themed version of it. This is a gremlin model, but it does count as a beast, which again means I can recruit for my Marcus crew. Yay! I think I'm going to prime this white. We'll see. Next up we have Killjoy. Now Killjoy was easy to prepare because he's just a single piece mini. I took off the tab and put a pin in one foot instead, because I'm going to attach him to this base, and I made a scenic base out of one of my basing stamps from what's the name? The Wargames Bakery, right. And I felt it needed a little bit more rubble, so I added some basing grit as well. Once that dries, I'm going to prime it. I'm not sure how I'm going to do this, if I'm going to attach him before all the priming, or if I'm going to paint the base up completely, prime him separately, then attach him. We'll see, we'll see. And finally we have Misaki, who's not quite fully assembled yet. She has no head. She came with a scenic base. It was a little tricky. It did not fit perfectly. I don't know if you can tell, but there's been some gap filling at the feet where it attached. Add a little bit more grit to the base, and I still have these pieces. The head with the long braid and the spear with a hand there. And these are going to be really tricky to attach because the connection points are really small. And there's no way to pin them, of course. It wouldn't be that. That would be too easy. But we'll get around to it eventually. So the thing I want to do, I think, next for my Malifaux collection is to kind of put the end cap on the latest two crews I've made, the Zoraida and the Victorious crew, by painting up the avatars of those masters. I mean, I have the avatar for Marcus, painted that a good long while ago, but here we have Zoraida, Avatar of Fate. When she takes her avatar form, Zoraida becomes young again, you see. And the Victorious, the avatars of Slaughter, they don't change very much. Their swords get really big, apparently. Yeah. And yeah, once I've done these, the crews will feel sort of feature complete. I mean, I can still add, you know, extra models for more variety, but I don't need to. I'm gonna be at a place where they are, they have everything they really basically need, and that'll feel good. And for this week's unboxing, I got a box from Reaper. Let's see what's in this shipment. Well, some minis to begin with, and some paints. Well, let's start with the minis. The odd man out here is the Thuggy Cultist, who I'm not sure why I picked up. I think I was thinking he could be some sort of cultist opponent in Call of Cthulhu or something. Then we have here two different models, both named Giant Snake. One is a bit more giant than the other. This one is coiled into a very tight circle. This one is more spread out. The Iron Cobra, despite the name, is not an actual snake. It's a golem in the shape of a snake, made of iron, as the name would indicate. It's still sort of snake themed. And, oh, what do we have here? The Giant Cobra, which is a snake, and a giant snake at that. And the final model is the Cavern Worm, which is not actually a snake. It's more of it's kind of like a purple worm thing. this is not a very accurate representation of a purple worm, but it's the same sort of idea of a heavily armored snake-like creature that burrows through the ground and bursts up and surprises people. And I got some Reaper paints. The most obvious being pure black and pure white, because I was running low on just plain black and white paint. No, this is pearl white, sorry. This is the pure white. The pearl white is a different thing. This is a kind of pearlescent white, as the name indicates. It's kind of a metallic white, which I want to try out. And these two colors, Noir Black and Nightmare Black. Why do I need so many blacks? Well, they're not really black. I mean, this one is seems like a really dark gray, and this one like a really dark blue. I'll have to test them out to see what they actually are. But I felt that I needed some more really dark colors for mixing and shading with. That's my haul, so to speak, for the week. Make sure to join me again next week to see another update on my progress. Until then, I'm Dakiyan, and I'm signing off.